Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That's just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the internet at MichaelDukesShow.com and across the state of Alaska on this your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello and good morning to you. It is Thursday and it is freezing out there, man. What the heck? I went out yesterday and my thermostat here in the studio had been lying to me. When I went to start my car and it went rear. I was like, what? I looked down and it was 27 below at my house. I was like, no. I moved away from Fairbanks for a reason. This was it. All right there. So yeah, we're at a bit of a cold snap and it's expected to lay across most of South Central and even up into the interior till Sunday. Apparently it's supposed to start warming up Saturday night, Sunday. So it is what it is. Get used to it, sweetheart. That's how it works around here. Anyway, today's Thursday and we're going to be diving into it in hour 2 with State Senator Mike Shower, who is going to be calling in, and we'll be hanging out and talking about everything that's going on in the Senate and what's happening there. He actually just was flying. He was flying back yesterday. So he actually missed the vote on the Senate, the defined benefits public pension plan. He was excused from the vote yesterday. And so, but I'm sure he'll have some insight on everything that's going on and what's happening and et cetera, et cetera. So he'll be joining us in hour 2 today. In hour 1, we've got that pension plan to talk about, which we are definitely going to be. I've got to say, we're going to be talking about that. We'll also talk a little bit about this new lawsuit that I got the email early yesterday. And they're like, embargoed. You can't talk about this till 1 p.m. And I'm like, wow, too bad I didn't have like a midday show. I could have talked about it before. I would have talked about it just because the ACLU has now filed a lawsuit against the Matsu School District over the use of bathrooms by transgendered folks. So that's I mean, come on. Okay. You can't win. You can't get ahead of this stuff. Anyway, we're going to we're going to talk about that as well, and anything else that comes up. Oh, I did want to talk a little bit. Well, we'll see if we have time. I did want to talk a little bit about that free market and the EV, the electric vehicle thing that we were talking about yesterday, and because we ran out of time. So there you go. That's everything. That's the whole deal. Excuse me. I'm going to crack a cold one here because I didn't make any coffee this morning because there was a massive power outage last night. I don't know if you knew this, but it was huge. Apparently, it was all the way from Palmer through most of Connect Goose Bay Road and actually into Anchorage. Parts of Anchorage dropped off the grid. It was massive. Now, how do I know? Well, because I have sleep apnea. And the minute that the power goes out, I feel like I'm drowning because it's no longer forcing air down my airway. And so you wake up kind of abruptly. And that was what happened to me this morning at 12:15 this morning. And so that was, if I sound like I'm a little scattered, it's because I had to lay there for 30 minutes or whatever, trying to figure out if I could try and go back to sleep without the machine, or if the power was going to come on, or if we were all going to freeze. I mean, it's a little scary. It's 20 something below at my house, and the power just went out. And it wasn't, you looked outside, you couldn't see the power across the arm at J Bear. You couldn't see, I mean, it was dark. And, so, you're the pucker factor's a little high. You're like, okay, well, what do I do? Do I go get the gen? I'll wait here. I'll just wait here for a few minutes. We'll see what happens. And it was about 30 minutes later that everything came back up and great. Went back to, eventually went back to sleep to wake up 3 hours later. But so this morning I'm trying to get some liquid caffeine in me to get things rolling on. So that's where we're going today. I'm just sharing with you because I'm oversharing, but that's the nature of what's going on. All right. Are you ready? Let's get into this here discussion. So according to Amy Bouchatz over at the ADN, and the press release, which I received, as I mentioned earlier, the press release, which I received from the ACLU yesterday morning, it's time. They're going to sue. The ACLU has now filed a lawsuit with the Matsu Borough School District over its preventing transgendered students from using bathrooms and locker rooms that match their gender identity policy. The board approved this policy back in October of 2022. The ACLU is representing a set of parents bringing the case on behalf of their transgendered son, who is a girl that wants to be a boy, or it believes that they are a boy. You know what I mean. Under this policy, every day their child faces mental and physical challenges because he's denied access to the boys' bathroom, even though he is a boy. I have so much problem. I have so many challenges with this. So many challenges. Even though he is a boy. Says who? Him? Does he have a doctor's note? Does he? I mean, and again, what really bothers me? What really bothers me, and I don't know if this is the case with this family or these parents. I don't know if this is the case or not. But when they use their child as a pawn for their political games, that may not be the case in this, but I have seen it in other stories. And it just drives me insane. They say that the policy infringes on the student's constitutional right to privacy because it violates his fundamental right to make his own choices about his body, his name, his gender identity, and the appropriate bathroom for him to use. This policy also violates the Equal Protection Clause of the Alaska Constitution because it treats transgendered students differently than other students. Yeah, but here's my question. What about the other students' rights? In this case, it's a girl who identifies as a boy, now going into the boys' bathroom or locker room, which, if it's the other way around, then it's a boy identifying as a girl going into the girls' locker. I mean, what about the other people's right? What about the right to privacy of others? See, that's what kills me on this, because they basically say, well, the right to privacy is what this is all about. This trumps all. I mean, his fundamental right to be appropriate and use the bathroom of his choice and yada, yada, yada. And so, yes, so this boy, this biological male can go into a female bathroom because they identifies as female, or this biological female can go into the male locker room because she identifies as a male. What about the privacy, the feelings of those other people? See, that's what comes up. Now, what did the Matsu Borough offer? They offered like unisex, right? Like private and unisex bathrooms. Didn't they offer them that they could use I mean, there are options where they can choose a bathroom that they're not forced to go. I'm just so torn on this whole thing. Not torn in a bit like I'm confused. I'm just so torn up by this whole argument whatsoever, because it basically is, like I said, I don't care what you do. I don't care what you believe. I don't care who you think you are or who you should marry or whatever. My job is not to judge you, right? I'm just saying that. But when you force what I believe, I'm not judging, but I'm just saying that, if you ask me, I'd say, I don't think that's right. Okay. But I'm not judging you. I'm just saying not something that I would do. Right. You do you. It's not something that I would do because I don't believe it's right. Okay. No big deal, but no judgments. I love you. You're golden. Go ahead and do it. But what kills me is when you're like, no, it's not for me. Thanks. You do you, and they go, no, you will believe the same thing that I believe. You will respect me for what, and I'm just like, whoa. Now you are demanding that I align with your beliefs, even though it may be antithetical to my own. I'm giving you the space to do whatever you want. And now you're like, no. You will not only do that, you will then abide by what I believe. Whether it's gender pronouns or them, they, ze, zer, Queen of Sheba, whatever it is, or you acknowledge that I go to the opposite bathrooms, or I'm just like, okay, wait a second. We just went way out of left field on this. And this is, again, this is from the ACLU press release. They say the policy infringes on the student's constitutional right to privacy because it fundamentally violates his right to make his own choices about his body, his name, his gender identity, and the appropriate bathroom for him to use. Again, I will ask, what about the rights of the other students who may feel uncomfortable or violated or, who don't want boys and girls bathrooms or girls and boys bathrooms? Biological. I'm not talking about what they identify as. I'm talking about their original hormonal makeup is. And that's the thing. That's all aside. Well, it doesn't matter. What we believe is supreme. Whatever that one kid believes is supreme. And if you feel uncomfortable about it, well, it's because you're a bigot. I'm not, but okay. If you don't like it, it's because you don't support people. And if you don't do it, these kids will commit suicide. How many times have we heard that? If we have this, then more kids will kill themselves. And I'm just like, that is just such the fallacious straw man argument that if you don't do what we say, we know that this is going to, will the incident increase? Potentially. But I mean, you're drawing this argument that is just, it is insane. And this is just nutty. This is just nutty. This is after the other lawsuit, by the way, that, okay, I'm sorry. I should comment on this real quick. I'm out of time, but he says, according to the Ruth Botstein, the legal director for the ACLU of Alaska, the MSBSD has forgotten its obligation to protect young people. Although I would disagree with that. As well as the constitutional rights of all students, regardless of their gender identity, are entitled to. The student just wants to be able to go to school like any other kid, to focus on learning and socializing with his peers, and not to have constant stress and anxiety about when and where he's going to be able to use the bathroom. I mean, it just sounds like a setup, doesn't it? Doesn't it just sound like this is all just planned? This is all just planned. This is not the only thing that's going on. Don't forget, the ACLU and the Northern Justice Project have filed that lawsuit against the district for the unconstitutional removal of 56 book titles, which, again, some of the titles I do disagree with. I mean, Slaughterhouse-Five. I mean, come on. That just, yeah. The parents and student would like to remain anonymous in the lawsuit. Okay. So they want to fight. They want to put it all out there, but they're not going to tell you who they are. I thought they would be out loud and proud, right? Isn't that the normal deal when it's all said and done? Isn't that what you normally? All right. Okay. We got more coming up. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I am wrong. I don't think I am, though. I don't think I am. We got more. We're going to be back right after this. We will return. Stay warm in the meanwhile.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes,
allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Somebody says, open up the phone lines. Okay, all right. I'll open up the phone lines. I mean, if they work today.
Thanks for calling the call-in line of the Michael Duke Show.
We'll see if they actually work. I don't know if they'll actually check it out. Shall we check it out? I did the same thing yesterday. Let me see. There it is. Let me call. Let me make sure if the phone actually rings this time. You could test it for yourself. You could it's taking its sweet time, isn't it? Nope, that number's not working. I don't know what's going on. GCI, I hate you so much right now. All right, alternate number, Brink, right there. That's the alternate number. So if you want to jump in, and you just call the number that's right here. You see it right there at the bottom, 319-527-3864. That's the secret number. I'm going to have to run the heater during the show the whole day today, because normally the heater is set to a very low level. When it gets cold, I turn it on and leave it on, and it cycles on and off, at like 58 degrees or something. Well, when the power went out last night, the heater didn't come back on afterwards. So I got in here in the studio this morning, and it was like 41 degrees in the studio. It's cold in here. And I'm wearing short sleeves. Anyway, okay, let me go back up over here. We got a couple lines on hold. We'll get to them here in just a hot second. Oh, I got to actually put that. There we go. There we go. All right, phone lines are open. If you guys are all ready, you want to do it. I see somebody from Fairbanks is calling in. The right to privacy clause gives the legislature the express right to implement in Alaska. I mean, I would think that right to privacy clause would go both ways on this, right? Right to privacy of the transgendered student. Okay, great. Also right to privacy of the other students. That would be my question. It's such an easy solution, says Jeannie. Just non-gender marked bathrooms. Yeah, I mean, I would just think that, Cindy's just said exactly what I was saying. What about the rights of the students using the bathroom based on their birth gender? So we change the rules for just one? What on earth are we teaching the future? What they're teaching the future is self-centeredness. Everyone's got to change for me. And if you don't like it, I'll sue. That's what it has to do. And where was the ACLU when the COVID idiocy authoritarianism was running amok? Yeah, pretty much. Kevin says BSA. Let's spend the BSA on this. In the defense to the Matsu issue, says Scott, is it's a crime to expose oneself to a minor. It's not an affirmative defense because someone is trans. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know. Oh my gosh. Is MD glitching for everyone else? Asks Mike. I don't know if I'm glitching for anyone else. Yeah, I know, Scott, that, Shower voted no on the vote simply by not being there. I know vote is I understand. What I'm just saying is he was not there. So I wasn't, don't hear what I'm not saying, my friend. Yeah, where is Anthony? That's a good question. Speaking of boilers, has anybody seen Anthony lately? I haven't seen Anthony. I just realized that. I might have to make a call, see what's going on, make sure he's okay. All right. Am I all caught up? It doesn't feel like no 24 below outside to me. Oh, it's so bad. Okay. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty base, free thinking radio. We'll take some phone calls. We'll see what we go, and we'll get it all done. Right now. Stay warm. Okay, welcome back to the program. We got more to talk about here, including this passage of the Senate defined benefits bill. But I got a line on hold. Somebody in the chat room just demanded that I turn on the phones. They want to talk about this. So we'll go over to the phone lines right now to do it. Let's get over there and see what has to be said. Good morning. Who is this? Where are you calling from?
Hi, Michael. That'd be me, Tim, the guy from Fairbanks.
Well, hello, Tim from Fairbanks. How are you, my friend?
Not too bad. Hey, I haven't been able to listen to you lately. I fell off the retirement bandwagon into a job.
I'm so sorry. I feel for you. I feel so bad.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay, so a bunch of things are going on, and you are all wound up on this one. So up there in Fairbanks, and I still can't believe you moved down south to the warmer weather. But so we've got this governor that wants to rename our airport, and that airport has been in my life for the last 40 years. And pretty much, I think Fairbanks says, no, don't rename our airport. Secondly, let me see. I lost it. Help me.
Help you. We were talking about transgendered bathrooms. That's the last thing that I remember before we got into what was going on up there.
Oh, that's your deal. Oh, the other thing is, I know you've got some borough assembly people that come into your show.
Very rarely. Tammy Wilson's been on, and we've had Barbara Haney on in the past, but I don't think we haven't had any of the current ones.
The last time I called and I was ranting, Barbara called. So here's the next thing. They want to raise our borough taxes to cover school funds. So I can't remember now. I think the Borough Assembly passed a deal where they would allow tax exemptions for people who are building multifamily homes in the Fairbanks North Star Borough. And this goes back to covering for the military who can't seem to provide the housing for their increased. And I've spent 30 years here in the military. Anyway, so they want to now raise the property taxes for everybody else to cover schools, but I think that they gave this break to the people who can afford to build multifamily structures. I'm just
well. I mean, there's to my knowledge,
I think I sound like Michael Dukes.
Well, to my knowledge, the only exemption that they offer is, I mean, nonprofits get an exemption, which we talked about a bit yesterday with Rob Myers, but the only other exemption is the residential exemption that you get for your being that, and then the old age exemption that has happened in the past. I do not believe that there is an exemption for a multifamily unit that I was aware of, I've ever been aware of. Maybe it is, but to my knowledge, it's not there. But you know that. Look, this is not, you don't get trapped into the thinking of pitting one property owner against another. Oh, you're getting an exemption and I'm not, so therefore you're the bad guy. The bad guy is the government, who is who again is treating this like this is not a spending problem, but that it's some kind of revenue problem, when both you and I know, Tim, that it's a spending problem that's causing this whole thing.
Yeah, well, it's all for the children in the schools.
Right. I mean, that's exactly it. It's just what we're hearing now, right? For the new thing in the Fairbanks North Star Borough with this tax cap thing, it's going to be for the children. I mean, we can't guarantee that, because we can't designate the funds, but it's for, trust us, it's for the children.
Okay, Michael, I can't. Yep.
All right, Tim. Well, thank you so much for coming on board and joining us today. We appreciate it. Thanks for being part of it. All right. Tim was our guest. If you want to call in this morning, I don't know, GCI, there's something wrong with it. Maybe the GCI doesn't like me. Maybe they don't like me banging on their corporate cronyism. Maybe that's what it is. Maybe that's why they keep killing my phone number. Anyway, the normal number doesn't work. So if you want to call in here in the next, because we'll take some calls here till the top of the hour, here is the number. Are you ready? Are you ready to copy? It's 319-527-3864. 319-527-3864. If you want to call in, you're welcome to. But the normal Alaska number, because it's a forwarder, right, is busted. So I don't know what's going on. I really have no idea. Everything else works fine, just fine. But that is not working. Anyway, so let's continue on. What else do we got here? Is GCI refunding you for their inability to provide reliable service? What do you think? I'm asking for a friend. What do you think? It's all part and parcel of the service, ma'am. All part and parcel. So the Senate passed the pension plan for yesterday, for the new defined benefits plan. The only good news on this whole thing is that it's got to go through the House, and so far the House is not looking like they are very receptive to this. Then it has to go to the governor, and I just don't know how the governor, just don't know how he feels about this. Don't know. He hasn't really said, I think I'm getting the feeling from some of the past articles that I read and some of the discussion that he's probably not fully in favor of it. So he may have a chance to veto it, and they definitely don't have the votes to override a veto on it. But some of my favorite comments on this includes Jesse Bjorkman, who says, this thing's going to be cost neutral. I mean, we don't have the actuarial numbers, the new numbers, which are due out in a month, but it's most likely to be cost neutral, even though the previous actuarial report actually said it was going to cost us $1.2 billion a year. But no, it's probably going to be cost neutral now. Oh, how much has changed in just a short period of time. And of course, we've got to vote for it now, even though we don't have the numbers. And to his credit, Bert Stedman said no. Absolutely no. Bert Stedman said he couldn't vote for anything that didn't have a full fiscal note attached to it, and that this was troubling and that this was going to cost the state a lot of money. I mean, I really want to dive down into this a little bit more, but I do have a phone call and I don't want to leave them on hold too long. So let's go over to the phones. Why not? We'll get her done. Let's go over there right now. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Good morning. This is Mike in Fairbanks.
Hello, Mike. What's going on?
So you brought up the borough and housing and property taxes. So I believe the borough assembly did pass something to give a tax break to people building multifamily houses. Existing structures don't get a break. But if you want to build a multifamily housing because we're short on housing, then you will get a tax break for a certain period of time. I don't know the details.
Well, I suppose that's possible because they were trying to gen up. Well, actually, even before I left Fairbanks, they were trying to gen up new housing because they wanted the F-35s to come and everything, blah blah blah. So I suppose it's very possible, and that would make more sense that it's a new construction tax for, you get a tax-free or a tax break for X number of years after you build it. That makes sense. I could see that. Although, why pick winners and losers at that point? That doesn't make any sense to me, but I see your point.
Well, that's exactly the point, Mike. And then just as Tammy Wilson said, was it 2 days ago? They're going to have an election probably to bypass the tax cap for this year and increase taxes on homeowners and rental unit owners and drive up the cost of rent for the same people that they want to stay here or come here.
Yeah, I mean,
so there's not a lot of common sense in the borough assembly.
No, it's a conundrum, man.
I want to speak on your school thing where they're ACLU suing the school district. Mm-hmm. So when a child goes to school, that child has a birth certificate, a legal birth certificate, a state-created birth certificate, and that certificate says what gender that child is. That's how the school district needs to treat that child. They don't have a choice. They shouldn't have a choice. I don't think they do have a choice. The people who have normal kids that are forced to use locker rooms and bathrooms with the abnormal kids should be suing the state for something like that. And that's where ACLU should come in, is protecting the right of legal people. It's just crazy.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. I agree. I think that it is crazy. And you're right. They have a legal definition of what they are based on the state, the birth certificate and everything else. And again, I don't care what you do in your own home. I don't care, any of this other stuff. Just don't. And this argument that it's all about the privacy of the one student. We're sacrificing all the rest of the students on the idol of the one student who's decided to make a stand or to throw a fit about it, essentially. So again, I do not have a good feeling about the privacy rights of the one individual when you want to violate everybody else's privacy rights so they get their way.
Yeah. Okay. You have a good day, Mike.
All right. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate your calling in right now. We're up against the break. We got more coming up. We're going to talk a little bit more about the defined benefits bill and issues here when we return. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Back with more right after this. Don't go anywhere. Mike Shower's coming up after the top of the hour, just FYI.
We're broadcasting live through a series of tubes.
Allowing all of these entities to provide streaming stuff going on the internet.
Well, it's kind of hard to explain. Sorry. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay. Let's see. Let me go back up here to see what's going on. Lathrop allows people to choose their bathroom. My sibling was shy. The first time he encountered girls in the boys' bathroom, he stopped using the bathroom at school. He would go all day without or leave school to use the library. So we're harming normal kids to make outliers comfortable. Yeah. I mean, yes, we are. Kevin says that the defined benefits plan has a deep fake fiscal note. Oh, man. Minus 31 where Jack's at in Kenai this morning. Ooh, a pucker factor is high. Yeah. Oof, man. At some point, Jesse needs to back up the rhetoric with facts. Yeah, I know. Let's see. Just went out and fed the critter. It is not fun outside. I let the dog out this morning and I was like, nope, that's a no fun situation right there. Perhaps instead of announcing he can't stand to be in the same room as Shower, he should sit his booty down with Shower and Naresh and learn something. D7 meeting last winter, he said this on Zoom about Shower. Well, you know what? That's what happens when you are faced with hard truths. You become very uncomfortable. When you're faced with somebody who is not wishy-washy, when you're faced with somebody who believes in, it makes people who will compromise. When you find somebody who doesn't compromise their principles, people who will become very uncomfortable around them. Ask me how I know. Rhett McCabe is not kidding, says Donna Ardwin. Games are being played on the defined benefits fiscal note. Donna, you'll have to give me a Cliff Notes versions of that. You have to give me Cliff Notes versions of that. What are we doing to our regular well-adjusted kids? Not going. I think that was a mistype. What are we doing to our regular well-adjusted kids, says Melody. We're damaging them. Here's what we're doing. We're showing them that these other kids are more important. We all got to kumbaya and coddle the one person who's having a crisis of identity or faith or whatever. I'm not saying we don't be conscientious and we don't be compassionate, but we don't break everything that we're doing and drop everything to make the one person. Yeah. The fiscal note was so questionable that Stedman would not sign it. And that's something that the newspaper didn't even mention. Right? The must-read article, where is the must-read article? Here it is. She mentions that Stedman said that how did she put it? He said it was an incomplete fiscal note, so he was going to be a no vote. Didn't say that it was so banged up that he wouldn't even sign off on it. And the ADN story doesn't even mention that the fiscal note is incomplete. It doesn't even say any. I mean, this is just. Where have all the good ones gone? And by that, I mean the investigative journalists or not even investigative. How about just inquisitive journalists? I mean, right? How about just inquisitive journalists? I'm asking for a friend. All right. Where are we at? 90 seconds out. It's now starting to get toasty in here. I mean, I may have to shut the heater off at some point because it's literally stuck underneath my desk, under my legs, and it's rolling up here now. And I'm like, oh, finally, my hands were so cold. But I'm thinking, well, I can't take another hour of this. I might be cooked right out of my own studio. So I might have to shut it off here in a bit. SB 88 is cost neutral only under the most rosy of assumptions. Return, yeah. I mean, they're estimating their rate of return at over 7%, right? 7 point something, 7.25 or something like that. I mean, that's insane. No, but there is nowhere are they getting that rate of return. Nowhere have they gotten that rate of return. And that's just, he said that in his floor speech, says McKevin, that he wouldn't sign off on it. Yeah, I didn't hear the floor speech. I didn't watch it. I was working. That's what happens. I think legislature should always just convene at night so people can go watch it for themselves after work. That'll be interesting.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay. So one final segment here. And I'm getting some input here. From the chat room. We got Senator Rob Myers is quoting in here. Kevin McCabe is in here, Representative McCabe, and Donna Arduin, who's working in the legislature, is here as well. And some of the comments about what is, like Rep McCabe basically just said that there's games being played. He said the fiscal note on this defined benefits plan is a deep fake fiscal note, deep fake. And I'm like, wow, deep fake. And Donna Arduin, who I respect a lot when it comes to these kind of things, numbers, fiscal notes, things like that. She said, Rep McCabe is not kidding. The games are being played on the defined benefits fiscal note. And then Kevin McCabe went on to tell me that it was so questionable, the fiscal note itself, that Bert Stedman would not sign it. Now, here's what's interesting. The reporting on this doesn't mention any of that. The report, unless you were actually watching the gavel to gavel and the debate and back and forth, which, by the way, how many hours was that? And how many people all the unions got up and talked, right? It was all the union reps that got up there to try and convince you that they need this for their members to protect it's all about money for the unions, but it's all for the, who was going to sit through all that? Not many people, quite honestly. But the newspaper, which is supposed to be kind of like, let me give you the cliff notes of what happened yesterday, doesn't mention it at all. Now, Must Read Alaska, which most people will probably not read unless they are conservative Republicans. They're probably not going to read Must Read. But Must Read does say that Bert Stedman, who was one of the senators around in 2006 when they stopped defined benefits, who pushed to get the pension plan retired and replaced with a defined contribution plan, pointed out that there is an incomplete fiscal note with SB 88, so he was going to be a no vote. He said, I'm concerned about the cost neutralness of this bill. I don't think it's cost neutral. The normal cost is higher than some of that calculated over at Ledge Finance. So that's what he said. But it did not say that it was so bad that he would not even, as co-chair of finance, sign off on the deal. And the ADN doesn't even mention that. ADN doesn't even mention that. It doesn't even mention the fiscal note. at all in the ADN article. I mean, it's, they did mention the actuarial and immediately poo-pooed what was going on with the actuarial. Buck Consulting, this is from the Sean McGuire article in the ADN. Buck Consulting, the state's actuary, last year studied the Senate's bill and projected that the new pension plan would cost the state an estimated $1.2 billion until 2039. A second analysis into the Senate's pension plan by Buck is expected to be ready in a few weeks. $1.2 billion a year. So, I mean, no big deal, right? Senate members said the actuary analysis actually projected the cost of the highest possible success of the plan. To cost $1.2 billion, all the current public employees would need to switch over to the pension plan, and the state's recruitment and retention crisis would largely need to have been solved for it to cost that much. Well, yes, that's the plan, isn't it? For all current public employees to switch over to the pension plan? Isn't that what's being whispered and promised in the background? Then they brought some economics professor in from the New School for Social Research in New York, and she said, oh, no, this won't cost. This will actually save the state $76 million per year by reducing turnover on public employees and teachers, to which she provided no proof. But she said it would, because she said it would. This thing is just, it's a poo parade. I mean, the fact that the Senate is going to pass out a bill that has an incomplete fiscal note and just shines it right along like that, that makes no sense whatsoever. All right, let's go over to the phones. See what you guys have to say. 319-527-3864. Good morning. Who's this? Where are you calling from?
Good morning, Michael. This is Harleen in Kodiak.
Hello,
I
Carleen.
have several topics.
All right.
Hello. In the Kodiak School District, we have a shortfall of $6 million. And then in the Kodiak Daily Mirror, the city manager was talking about changes in the tax structure. We get $17 million a year for our sales tax and housing taxes or whatever that is, but $15 million a year is not, above that is not collectible because, tax exempt status, the nonprofits and everything. I really feel that the working poor actually pay that $17 million a year, but we need a new boat harbor for $56 million, water, a new fire station. There are other things. And so they're going to change our tax structure. And I've been tax exempt, but all along I've known that this could change. And
Right.
I've been following the lawsuit of the CANA versus the Kodiak Island Borough.
Right.
CANA is a nonprofit, but they have a surplus of $9 million a year, and that's above their spendthrift ways. The CANA CEO makes $1.2 million a year. The board of directors make $100,000 a year, and that's $800 a meeting. And the same board of directors are on the CANA board, and the same board of directors are on the Kodiak Island Housing Board. And now the Kodiak Island Housing has 100 empty, these are low-cost housing, 100 empty apartments. So they're renting apartments out for the weekend or for a couple of days. But we have people here that have bed and breakfasts, and they pay the city sales tax plus the bed tax. So I don't know what that is, 11, 12, 13% above.
So, Carleen, what are you?
CANA has full tab operation in Anchorage.
Are you saying that they shouldn't have their tax exempt status because they have money in the bank and they could be making money on some of these projects, or what's your assertion here?
Well, when I use my Medicare and I go to the clinic, Medicare gets charged $670 no matter what, and an extra $70 if they refer me I have to go see a doctor to be referred to get new eyeglasses, and it's an extra $70 on top of that. And for years now, that's what the going rate is. Medicaid or Medicare or your private insurance get charged that, so they're not really nonprofit. And they built a mall over here with beautiful offices above, and they have pull tab operation, and they get grants to build apartments for their staff in the villages. And there's just a lot going on, Michael. There's a lot going on right now. And I hope that the legislators will look at the other side. I go to the borough meetings. I've gone to a city meeting when GCI contractor cut that water main November 17th or so, to see who's going to pay for that $1 million repair job. I go to these meetings and I'm the only person there. When I can't go, I listen on the radio, 100.1. So people just aren't interested that it's going to affect your pocketbook big time.
Right. Well, it is unfortunate, Carlene. I mean, I feel for you. I've seen the same thing where one or two people show up and they're the only ones that show up to the whole meeting when something important is going on. I definitely feel your pain in that regards. And sure, if you've got a corporation that's got $9 million in the hole and they're doing a lot of things that are not kind of non-profity, but instead are kind of avoiding the profit or not for the profit kind of thing, where there's, I mean, sure, we could have arguments on that, but I think what Rob was talking about yesterday with some of these lawsuits is, especially against nonprofits, is that their property taxes, they should, there should be some stability in that for sure. All right, Carlene, I got to go. Thank you so much for your call. Randy, you got less than 60 seconds. What's on your mind?
Randy in Fairbanks?
Yep, quickly.
Yeah, I did not see Governor Dunleavy's State of the State address on Tuesday, but I'd like to see it if I can find a recording. But the Fairbanks Daily News Miner Wednesday had an excellent article about it, kind of covering it blow by blow. And everything he said really sounds good. They divided it into the topics. North to the future, he lamented how, the left-wingers are always trying to stop any kind of development. And he said, unless we change this attitude, north to the future will become no to the future.
Right.
He talked about...
we went over Randy, we went over a lot of this yesterday, and I apologize, but I'm 10 seconds from hitting the top of the hour. Appreciate your call, folks. We got out of time. Mike Shower up next. Yeah, less than 60 seconds for Randy was not going to work. I mean, I should have known better, but, it is what it is. I don't think Mike's going to do this via video because he's a grumpy Gus. But I'll send him the link anyway. I should have sent him the link earlier, but I didn't, so now I'll do it. We'll see if he's ready to go. There we go. Otherwise, I'm sure he'll call me and it'll be good. Okay. Let's go. How many legislators and or their spouses will benefit from a defined benefit plan? Giesel's husband works for DOT and would benefit. Yeah, I mean, I know this is, again, part of the conflict of interest rules. Right? All communities, I'm sorry, let me go back down here. All communities have needs. Economic growth is required to meet all our needs. Government spending growth is on the backs of our businesses and investment of wealth. Our fiscal structures need to change to promote economic activity, says Ben. Gail asked if I was referencing the nonprofits. I was referencing the nonprofits that Carlene was referencing in the phone call. That's what she had been originally talking about. So, yeah, that's good. Okay. I'm going back up here to see what you guys defined benefits. Use the same retirement plan our military personnel have, or use the federal civil service retirement plan, which has been in place since 1986. The feds realized that defined benefits was unsustainable. We've seen what has happened against, with defined benefits across the country. We saw GM and Delta, they both had to be bailed out at one point by the federal government over their defined benefits programs. And that most of our, municipalities and cities and communities have stopped because it's a hot mess. Feel like Diogenes looking for a journalist with even a modicum of intellectual curiosity. I would not disagree with that. Tim solved the problem. He said, I went to work for the state. In 5 years, I'm vested and pulling the plug. He said 37 and a half hours a week. Yes, please. I mean, if you can't beat them, join them, right? Yeah, I'm not, there you go, Tim. That's the way to do it. If you can't beat them, join them. I mean, Harold's of the same mind too. He's taking all them, taking all them government contracts and government jobs. Might as well get it while the getting's good. I mean, I'd be lying if I didn't tell my kids, hey, if you can get a state job, go do it. If you can get a state job and you go do that, that'll fix you right up. You'll be fine. As long as you stay there and keep your nose clean, you'll be retired for the rest of your life. It's ironic, says Scott, that Stedman empowered the Democrats to control the Senate by throwing Shower and others under the bus, and then they shoved defined benefits down his throat. Yep. That's called unintended consequences, baby. That's what that's called. Unintended consequences. Yeah. I'm sorry. I'm reading. Damn it. I got too many things going on here. I'm trying to talk and type and do my whole thing here. Okay, that's I can hear it. Let's go over here. See if we can get every private business in the country has ditched defined benefits, says Kevin.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic.
For God's sakes.
Your call has been forwarded.
I'm getting a little frustrated. Let me reach out here to see. But answering. Okay, we'll see. Let's see what we do. Okay, every private business of the country has ditched defined benefits. I find it offensive that the unions denigrate their members by saying they cannot possibly be smart enough to invest in their own defined contributions plans. Yeah, that's that's a problem, right? I mean, that's because that's always the argument. Always the argument is, well, they just can't do it as well as, everybody else who has a 401k plan or an IRA or some kind of individual investment retirement plan. We apparently figured it out, but government employees, they apparently are not smart enough to figure it out for themselves because they have to have a defined benefits. It's the only way they can retain them. Right? I mean, All right. Yeah, I mean, Kevin, if you want to call in and talk about this, you can. I mean, I don't know what's going on with Shower. I confirmed with him yesterday, and everything's going straight to voicemail. So if you want to call in, you can do it on my cell, or you can whatever you want. I'm open to it, my friend. Let's go. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out themichaeldukesshow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Duke Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That was just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Yep, live around the world on the internet at michaeldukeshow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning and welcome to the program. It is the Michael Duke Show. And look at that. Lo and behold, speak of the devil and he should appear. Mike Shower. I'm hoping is this thing on? Can you hear me now?
I'm here.
Mike,
I'm here.
I'm here.
How much coffee have you had this morning?
Oh,
Holy mackerel.
I've had a bunch, man. I haven't had any coffee, but I did have a full monster, like right during the beginning of the show. Because we had power outages and stuff and everything. And I mean, I don't want to rehash the whole first hour, but I tried to call you, and you went straight to voicemail. So I thought you were shining me on again. So yeah.
No.
Good morning. How are you? How much coffee have you had so far this morning?
Not as much caffeine as you, apparently.
Dude, it's fine. My heart will not explode. Just that's a myth. All right. Hey, what's happening, hot stuff? What's been going on? What's happening down there in the legislature with all the? I mean, tell us the story, Uncle Mike, about everything that's happening in the world out there. What's going on and what's happening?
Well, there's two that I think are the again, your listeners pay attention, at least some of them do, to what's happening. One is Senate Bill 140, or the one that has the BSA increase battle going on and some other things the House is adding to the Senate's bill, which the Senate, like I said, seems to be on a spending spree this year. And then Senate Bill 88, which is the whole defined benefit thing. So those are the two that are kind of taking all the oxygen out of the room at the moment, and the press is talking and all that kind of stuff. So that's where I think the focus is right now on those two, and those are really about money. And Mike, like I said, that's where, if you look at it right now, Senate Bill 88 is let's see, I think the numbers they used was about $1.2 billion for the cost of the bill over X amount of years, roughly.
Right.
70 million a year or something like that. But that's here's every government program, right? I always say double it, for cost and time that they give you the estimate for. So
right.
ARM board members I'm talking to, getting some data, trying to understand this area, if you will, because it's not something that I have expertise in or have ever really dealt with, is that it will probably run, everybody kind of acknowledges it's going to cost more, and it could cost a lot more than that. And we're dealing with a fiscal note on it waiting for a new one that I have a feeling is probably not going to be quite as optimistic.
Right.
And like all things, like any statistician, you can take 2 + 2, you can make it equal 5.
Right.
You can have any poll if you ask the questions right. You give you the poll results that you're looking for. So,
well, I mean, even the first report from the actuarial, which was they quoted, was again the $1.2 billion cost associated with it. And that was using rosy assumptions. That was using that everything was going to be great and they were going to get a 7% return and they were going to do all these other things. And they're still a few weeks out from this next fiscal note. And Kevin McCabe was in the chat room and he said Bert Stedman wouldn't even sign off on the current. He said the fiscal note's incomplete. He wouldn't even sign off on it as a co-chair of finance.
Co-chair.
I mean, that's
he said no.
Yeah, when that happens and these people are still like, oh, yeah, let's vote for it. What? This is the Obamacare bill again? We got to vote for it to find out what's in it, how much it's going to cost. We have no idea. How fiscally, the fiduciary responsibility is there. How irresponsible is it for you to vote for a bill that you have no idea what it's actually going to cost?
Yeah, it's going to cost more. Look, Mike, this is back to what we talked about before. What was one of the problems with tier 1, 2, and 3, right? Because we're on tier 4 now for newer employees since I think 2006, roughly. It was a very generous plan, too generous, as it turns out, right? Because we had lots of money back then, so we were spending it, and it became unaffordable because you looked at it and go, we were underfunded. Current numbers, I was answering somebody asking me on social media yesterday when I posted some about this. I think it's about a little north of $10 billion we're underfunded if you include municipalities, everything of state liability, so PERS, TERS, et cetera, about $10 billion. This is going to add another, like I said, all right, $1.2 billion is their estimate, but that is probably a low ball offer. Probably going to be a lot more than that. And the reality too, Mike, like I said, they were using 7.25%, I think is the actual number they were using. And I think everybody out there in the real world, other than the state government and federal government world that can do whatever they want, it seems, with money, is probably 5 to 6%, best case, right? So that's another compound interest when you get at the end, how much more that could cost us. Look, Mike, in my opinion, reality is this is more about the control of big unions, and paying back unions for support kind of thing. Because if you saw the building last week, unions everywhere, right? All the big union leaders and lobbyists were flooding the building again, just like teachers unions, those were flooding it for the BSA increase. It's all about money and power, right? And paying people back for supporting you during elections. This is my opinion, because you can see the union influence there, right? And I have to always clarify this. I'm in a union, not anti-union, but the higher up the union ladder you go, the worse it gets, the more political, the bullying, that kind of behavior, you just see it, right? So this really, more than anything else, Mike, I think has to do with the massive amount of control and power that unions hold in this state. And you look at it, I mean, they're everywhere when it comes to this. Right. And so I believe when you look at the best way to do this, and this is almost a quote from one of the long-term ARM board member, was that if you were putting the amount of money into the defined contribution plan we have in the state now for tier 4 retirement, and I think it's around 22%, something like that we were putting into the DB plan, that defined contribution plan, Mike, would be one of the best in the country. We'd be turning people away that wanted to work here for that. And I truly believe, looking at it now, that why would you go backwards and make the same mistakes with a defined benefit program that requires people to be stuck working for the state for all the years that they require before they get vested in it and actually have it right available? Why would you put the liability on the state going backwards in history again, that everybody in the world is trying to get away from, because it puts huge liability on either the private sector, company, et cetera, that's doing it, or the government, whichever one it is? Why would you do that when all of the data today shows that younger people prefer the defined contribution plan because it's theirs, it's portable. In other words, they can take it with them whenever. It's their money, right? Cash is king. They can go anywhere they want. They're not stuck in the state. They can go to 1,000 other jobs. It's all good. They don't trust that DBs are going to be there because states and other places have defaulted, bankruptcy, et cetera. And so when you look at the benefits of a DC plan, I think it is the way to go. The problem, Mike, and we do have a problem, is that we are not putting enough into it. And as another ARM board member told me as well, he's like, here's the thing. He's like, you are actually one of the things that we are not acknowledging, dirty little secret, if you will, is that the defined contribution that we have right now, one of the reasons that's not that good or as good as it should be to really be a enticing thing for people to work for the state and stay here, is that you're still paying for the old overly generous tier 1, 2, and 3 plans that we couldn't afford. And so a lot of the money's going still to pay off the old plan. And now you want to go back to that same type of plan again? When you see members of the Senate stand up and go, this is going to be cost neutral. What dream world do you live in? This is never going to be cost neutral. That's not going to happen. It's going to get worse over time. And when you add, even if it was just 70 million, but just for math, Mike, let's just say 100 million. This is another one of the kickers, right? If you add 100 million for this plan, which I'll just say that's what it is, and I think it's going to be quite a bit more over time, to the 100 to 125 million dollars a year that the state already has cooked into the books, right, for just contract increases, et cetera. And then you add this BSA battle. Now they're starting to talk 300 to 400 million in the battle between the House and the Senate. Mike, you're over $500 million outright spending this year. And every 5 years, it's another $500 million. So if you look at that, we're within 5 years, we're over $1 billion of new spending. And that's nothing else, Mike, nothing else. That's every penny that you get from the permanent fund earnings, which means no PFD, which I've been predicting for some time here, right? That means that what's after that? What have they been telling us, Mike, that we could not afford the PFD? Oh, we can't afford that big PFD because we're going to have to tax. So if you take their own logic, what they have been saying on the Senate floor for years,
right?
What this means is the BSA increase. It means that this defined benefit plan, it means that all the other spending coming around the corner, that we're going to have to tax this, Mike, after we take all the money from the permanent fund dividend that would go to the citizens. It would go to help the middle class and the poor. It goes into the private sector, which desperately needs it in the state. Instead, we're going to spend it all on government. We're going to take all the permanent fund earnings anyways, and we're going to end up taxing. That's the long range prediction. I think that's where we're headed. It's undeniable based on their own words from the last few years of floor speeches when it comes to the battle over the budget and the PFD. And you see some of them stand up and go, I'm a fiscal conservative. In what world? No, you're not. You're suggesting spending more.
I love it. I love it when Kathy Giesel gets out there. I just want to remind you, I'm a Republican. If you have to remind people, that's a problem, right? I mean, come on, seriously. If you have to show people that is a problem.
Well, Mike, but this is my point. If people are going to try to say I'm a fiscal conservative, but you're talking about spending money that we're going to be locked into, which is what they're talking about, right? Long-term liability for this state. In other words, you're shoving this payment off to your kids and your grandkids. And they always talk about the PFD, right? That's why I keep circling back to that. Oh, that PFD is going to cost us a ton of money. Well, is it really now? Because the way we used to do it before we decided to start taking it all the time was that it depended on the performance, right? And it was just a math formula. If the PFD was $500, nobody complained because that's the performance of the fund, right? In the market, no big deal. And if it was a $3,000 PFD, so be it. No big deal, right? Now we arbitrarily take it, which we're on the path to take it all anyways. And so when they say that, it's disingenuous, Mike, because the PFD is something that we can go up or down with as required, right? And it's not a fixed cost. It's not a liability to the state, because if we had a bad year, you could always just take it down to nothing based on the performance, right? I mean, that's how it has always worked until the last 7 years.
Right,
so
right.
Most of the arguments are spacious. This is going to cost us. It is repeating the mistakes of the past. It is not what is best for the state. I don't believe it is what is best for state workers. I believe the problems we have can be fixed by making this a very attractive defined contribution plan. And the reality is we're still paying for the past mistakes.
Well, and we're
doing it again.
Let me remind people what the difference is. The major difference is between the defined contribution and the defined benefits plan. The defined benefits plan, much of that money would go into the union's hands for them to then disperse and to hold on to down into the future. Defined contribution, you direct where it goes. And so they don't get a lot of that. I mean, it's part of the problem. And as Donna points out, the DB plan, according to the Reason Foundation, who has a better track record on most of these things than I would say the Alaska legislature. $9 billion, not $1.2 billion, $9 billion for the same time frame. That's problematic, to say the least. I mean, we're still, $6.5 billion behind on the last time. And where are we going to go from here? It's just,
and remember, Mike, it's more than that. It's really north of 10 billion if you include all the actual liabilities to the state with those three plans. It's not 6.5. That's PERS, TERS, municipalities. It's the whole thing. Remember, we got to do apples to apples. So it's all of the costs the state is liable for.
Right.
It's over 10 billion, and that's right from the Senate Finance co-chairs briefing it and the briefings. The data from the state. It's north of 10 billion.
Right.
It could be, 1.2 billion is what they say. It could be a lot more, maybe 9 billion. I don't know. The point is, it's a lot of money, and we're going to be owed that because it's not. Once you have a defined contribution plan, I don't know if Donna said this too. The reality, Mike, is you're done. The state cuts the check. It's done. The person has it. It's in the stock market. I've heard people say, well, what the stock market goes, there's your defined contribution plan slips. I got news for you. If the stock market gets that bad, it's going to hurt defined benefit plans. It's going to hurt defined contribution plans, which means the state's on the hook. We got even bigger problems, back to taxes and things we can't afford. So if the stock market is that bad, Mike, then everybody suffers from that. That's the reality of the retirement systems we have set up and how we're funding them. One of the reasons that everybody's getting away from it is because it is so unaffordable long term.
Right.
And the amount of liability that the corporation, the state, the public sector, private sector, employer has, that's a lot of money they're required to keep in the books. But I'm going to go back to Reason Foundation. Others have also talked about it. It is very clear from the data that you could defined benefit or contribution, if they both were funded at the appropriate level, et cetera, could be theoretically neutral, right? As far as the benefit to the employee, not the employer, but the employee. But the reality is, Mike, the younger crowd, they prefer the defined contribution plan. That's what we're seeing. I see that in my own at FedEx.
Because
the younger pilots,
they want to move around. They want to change to different positions. They want to change, jobs. Nobody's going for the 20 or 30 or 40 year retirement anymore because that's not generationally what they want to do. So what you're being told about the longevity of this defined benefits program is a lie, because they're not going to stick around long enough to be vested in it, and yet will be on the hook for it, and it will be constitutionally guaranteed. That's the thing. Once you lock the defined benefits plan in, the Constitution, it's a contract, and it becomes constitutional. You are forced. That's why we're still paying for Tier 1 employees, even though we changed the plan to defined contributions back in the day. I know I'm walking all over you here, Shower, but we gotta go. We're going to come right back. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show continues. We'll return right after this. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Mike Shower, our guest, back with more after this.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we were running so late, right up to the edge on that one. Let's go back over to Shower. Sorry about that, man. I looked up and realized that we were headed up against the hard break there. So, but yeah,
you're a radio host. You talk.
I talk.
It is what you do.
It is what I do. You're giving me a run for my money today, though. But I will. But I mean, I agree with you. I mean, look, here's the thing: the workforce is fundamentally shifting, and they act like this is strictly an Alaska problem. Like Alaska's got a problem. Alaska's got an employee retention problem in the state government, and we've got to fix it. But they're not acknowledging that this is a problem across the country. This is not just simply an Alaska problem where we've got to make it attractive for people to come here to do it, or the people who are here to stay. This is a problem across the country. And as the workforce, ages and more of the millennials are hitting their middle years of the workforce, They want that portability. They want to be able to take up and pick up their families and just go somewhere else. It's statistically, it's happening across the country.
That is correct. And as I was pointing out before we kind of hit the wall for the clock, I saw this in the industry. I'm in the private sector, Mike. And like I said, when you talk to all the young guys, most of them, I mean, there's always, people that prefer one over the other or both, right? Depending on the circumstances. They prefer the defined contribution plan. One of the reasons is because they've seen bankruptcies, et cetera, in the airline industry. Defined benefit plans go away. And I can point that out when I did my short lap over at Delta after I retired from the Air Force. They had just gone through bankruptcy. The Delta and Northwest had merged. Then they had the big bankruptcy thing there. They lost their A plan, their defined benefit plan. And they took a pretty big pay cut too, because, economy was, tanking, et cetera. And some of these guys had lost like 60% of their compensation overnight, right? And it was just gone. And so a lot of the newer, younger generation looks at that and goes, I don't trust that a company is not going to go to court and declare bankruptcy and it's gone. Right now, I'm starting over. If
right.
You will,
give me the money. Right. Give me the money. I'll take care
That's
of it.
right.
I'm not going to trust it to somebody else.
Cash is king. Cash is king. It's theirs. It's portable. It's always there for them. Nothing that the company doesn't matter because the company's already cut its check. Until whatever happens, whether retirement or they decide to go and get employed somewhere else. And that's another little hook you don't talk about, Mike. And you think about the unions and just how, what's the right word, scheming they can be on this. You're locking people in to working for the state that could be here for, when you look at that bill itself, for many, many years required before they're vested at all in the plan. What if that younger person, they come up here to be a teacher, whatever it is, name the thing, right? And after a couple of years, they go, this isn't working. I've been here for 4 or 5 years, and this just isn't right for my family. I'm going to move to sunny Texas or Florida, or you get a different career field, or something happens in life. Parents are getting older, and they got to move down south. Well, the next thing you know, you just basically really put somebody into a square corner. Defined contribution plan. They go, okay, take it with me and start over. Roll it into another one, but not with the defined benefit plan.
And that's
and how long you're here.
That's what Brian just said. He said, "What, like golden handcuffs?" Exactly. You're locking them in because now they got the sunk cost, right? They've spent all this time, and if they don't get to the payoff, they will not get anything. Whereas if it's a defined contribution for those 5 years that they've been there, they've been putting that money away and they can take it with them. I mean, that's the flexibility you need. And the problem with defined benefits is that nobody can predict the future. Nobody can predict it. But you're saying we're going to give you this benefit no matter how much it costs 20 years down the road. And that's how we got into trouble the first time around.
Yeah, because like I said, it goes back to, Mike, once the state, once the entity that has the retirement plan cuts the check every month, for X amount, then it's done. It's done. And you can move on. Everybody moves on. The state's not liable down the road, and the employee gets to take it with them. I know we got to stop there for the break.
Yeah, we're going to jump back into this here. But that's exactly it. You look at Delta, you look at GM. Many of these companies had to be bailed out by the federal government. Their defined benefits plans, they had to pull the plug on them because they were destroying them. And that's
we'll talk about that on the radio too. That's applicable.
Let's hit it. Here we go. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
Okay, we're back. Mike Shower is our guest. Man, the in-between show was good behind the scenes. I guess we're going to have to repeat some of that because Mike is making some valid points. And one of them is, he was part of that whole thing with Delta when they had their defined benefits program and the whole thing went explosive because, they're stuck. And that's the other thing that nobody's talking about is a defined benefits plan will act like a pair of golden handcuffs to people who come here and then decide that they want to leave. They can't leave. They can't leave the position because they've sunk time into it, but they're not vested and they can't take it with them. And that's a problem as well. Would that be attractive to somebody if they look at it and go, well, I have to be there at least 10 years or whatever the vestment period is. And I don't know if I want to if I want to commit to that. I mean, that's a problem.
And then, like I said, dirty little secret, Mike's like, so you get up here and all of a sudden your wife, says, I can't take this place. We need to move back to sunny Florida or Texas or somewhere else, or your parents get sick and you got to get down south to help them. Or, one of your children has certain special medical needs. I've seen that in the military. And they had to be moved to different bases where the specialists were nearby. Mike, there's 1,000 reasons you can come up with why it may be viable for somebody that goes, you know what, this isn't working out. I need to go somewhere else. And all of a sudden they go, I can't, because you just shanghaied them, golden handcuffs. They're stuck here. That is not a better thing for the employee. They don't talk about that, do they? It's almost like the little secret. They want to trap you working here. And of course, the unions love that. Why? Because the more people they have, in their union roles here, the more money they get, Mike, the more power they have. Like always, follow the money, right? Why do you think the unions want that? You think it's really better for people? The reality is it's not. And like I was bringing up, as we ran into the break, I saw this at Delta. And when I got hired at Delta, right when I retired from the Air Force in 2010, a couple of years before, that's when Northwest and Delta merged, and they had the big, nice defined benefit plan, all that. Well, they went bankrupt. They lost all that. Some of the guys were telling me they were somewhere in the 60% range of compensation lost overnight. Imagine losing almost 2/3 of all your compensation overnight. Pretty big hit, right? And so when you look at the younger crowd, all the guys I talk to, almost all of them, right? There's always outliers and stuff, is that they prefer the defined contribution plan because they've seen this industry in the airline side I'm talking about, bankruptcies and other things, and they've lost those. FedEx is struggling with that now, that same decision, for defined benefit and defined contribution. And the other little thing that you were mentioning, right, as we were ending there on the break, is that the federal government has had to bail out some of these entities with these defined benefit plans. And another thing they're not telling you, didn't talk about that in the floor debate yesterday, is that a number of states have had to be bailed out on their defined benefit plans. California sounds like the federal government with its debt and deficit. They are, I don't know, I want to say they're $1 trillion over of all their liabilities because of all their very generous, state and municipal retirement plans.
Right.
And Mike, these are the debt we are shoving onto our children and our grandchildren. And there is a better path. And the better path is and like I said, Reason Foundation and others, data shows it. They could be neutral. The better path is to make the defined contribution plan enticing for new employees, put the amount of money required into it so that it actually is an attractive plan and a valuable plan, make up for, the fact that we're not putting enough into it right now to make it attractive. And that is a true statement, right? I mean, it could be better, but you do it with a defined contribution. You don't go backwards in time and make the mistake of going to a defined benefit plan that puts everybody on the hook, locks people into these jobs, can't leave the state, liability for the state down the road, something the younger generation really doesn't want. Why would you do that, Mike, when the better answer is really pretty simple? You increase the attractiveness of the defined contribution plan, and it's better all the way around. Like I said, our board member, these are the people that are responsible for managing the retirement systems of Alaska, said very clearly, if you put that, I'll repeat what I said in the first segment. If you put as much money into defined contribution as we were defined benefits for all those great plans we had in the past, it would be one of the best, if not the best, in the nation.
Right.
That's a quote, Mike, from talking to him. So if the very people that are responsible for managing this plan go, there's probably a better path that makes sense, and it takes liability off the future generations for us.
Right. Well,
why would we not do that?
It takes the guesswork out. I mean, that's the problem with defined benefits. Things go up and down. You don't know. There could be some kind of major breakthrough. There could be some kind of crisis in healthcare. There could be you just don't know. In a defined benefits, even if you increased the defined the defined contributions, I mean, even if you increase the defined contributions, and so it costs a little more, you know what those costs are going to be forever because they're going to be set. They're not amorphous. They're not controlled by market effects or what's going on in society or culturally or anything else. They are there. You know exactly what percentile is you're going to pay based on the number of employees. It's a locked in number. Why would you go for the if come versus the sure thing? And that's what nobody wants to talk about.
Well, follow the money, Mike. Follow the money. When you look at who spoke on the floor and you look at, who supports them, and, maybe what their jobs were, you can see clearly that, big union leadership, and that's always been my problem, like not unions. I'm in a private sector union. Your average union person is just trying to make it happen, make ends meet, do the best for themselves and their families. It's the top, right? Like all things, as political as many issues with them as there are with any politician group or anything else, it's really look at who was voting yes, look at who was speaking to it, and you can kind of see based on their comments and where their money came from. Follow the PACs, look at which unions gave them money, right? I mean, Mike, you can see it. So, and especially when we're discussing public sector union, right? People that might have been presidents of public sector unions and the support they got, right? I mean, you could go down that path when I look at my Facebook comments. So, you can see this, and so it is truly, follow the money and who is involved in this and what they want to do and where this is coming from. This is not the best path, Mike. This is the best path for a few people and a few entities that desperately want to do this. And it is not the best path, in my opinion, and the opinion of a lot of people that, are responsible for managing this system, and that raw data from historical learning, right, and the future and the current younger generation, this isn't the best path. It isn't. So, I'm hopeful that the House will have listened to this and watched, and the House will go, nope, we're not going to do this. I don't know where the governor stands. We have two backstops, right? One, the House can go, nope, we're not going to play this game. We're going to do it better. And/or, if somehow it gets through that, the governor goes, this is not the best path forward for the state and the people of Alaska. And we take a different path. So, and here's the reality too, right? Like every year, right? We're going to be facing this. They're going to keep trying. So this battle isn't over. We beat this one, then you're still going to beat the next year and the next year. They're never going to stop. Give me the money, right? They just want the money.
Well, what bothers me the most about this is the fact that they are voting on something for which there is no that there's no fiscal. I mean, let's assume that the defined benefits is the greatest thing since sliced white bread, but we do not have a full fiscal note on it. We don't have the full ramifications. We don't have, and they say it's coming. Here it is. It's coming. But they're voting on something that they do not have a full fiscal picture on. Again, the fiduciary responsibility. I mean, for me, I can love or hate Bert Stedman, but I got to respect it when even he says, wait a second, we got to have a full fiscal note before we plan on what's going on here. I mean, that is crazy to vote on something when you have no earthly idea what it's actually going to cost. How can you say that that's responsible?
Well, it's not responsible, and I think Stedman made that point, and I believe Stedman was actually a part of helping to move us to defined contributions away from defined benefit plans years ago, because this is up his lane of looking at that kind of accountability on the fiscal side, and made the point, and I certainly respect that and understand it. Why would he sign a fiscal note sign off on it when he doesn't even have the newer one that's coming out that may not be as optimistic as the one they currently have? I wouldn't put my name to that either. I don't blame him for a second. You want to see what the numbers are, show me the money, so to speak, until, you see that. Why would you put your name on something? Because it could be a lot worse. Maybe it's double. Maybe it's, any number of things. Maybe they're using better assumptions like the actual market is using, as opposed to a rosy 7.25%. And think about that compound interest down the road, Mike. That's probably not good. But like I said, you can get people to give you whatever you want for assumptions to make something work, especially in the world of politics and government, right? Say, hey, I want this to make it look like it's going to be really cheap and it's going to be great for us. So here, do this, this, and this. And, they're not stupid. These people can figure out, from these companies, oh, this is the answer they want. Let's give them that answer, right? Because they're making a lot of money to do this, to do these studies and produce this data. So that's always something that's possible, Mike. They say, hey, make sure this looks the way we want it to look. I mean, come on. Nobody's that naive to think that's not how this would be played out. So who knows what this one's going to be? But yeah, like with Stedman, why would he put his name to that until he knows what it's going to be? So any of us, right? Because all things like why we want to do this, you got to vote for it so you can figure out what's in it. The old Nancy Pelosi. I mean, and it's not a small bill, Mike's 50 pages, 49 pages. It's a big bill. My election integrity that got so much, heat from leftists and Democrats and some Republicans was a lot smaller than that. So, and it didn't cost a fraction of this, and it was mostly one-time cost. So
Right,
really,
right.
we can't pay $12 million to make sure we have election integrity, but we can pay billions of dollars for a plan that is not the best path forward. Seriously,
An unknown, an unknown amount of billions. Like we know it's going to be $1 billion, but we don't know how many beyond that. I mean, that makes sense. All right.
Like I said, Mike, they're going to tax us. This is going to run us into taxes. They've been saying we can't afford this kind of spending for years. Oh, that PFD is going to bankrupt the state. It's terrible. It's, like I said, tax. That's what it's going to be. But now we're looking at billions of dollars, and everybody's like, "What? No, what's the problem? I don't see a problem with this." Can't pay it to the private sector and the citizens of Alaska, but boy, we can pay for a few thousand. I think our total workforce is 360,000 or something. We were just looking at the other day, DOL statistics, and you're about 21,000 state employees. So all of this money, Mike, all of this focus goes in about 21,000 plus the tens of thousands of retirees. But what about that private sector that's anemic, barely getting by? What are we doing for the? Oh, nothing.
Right. Well, and
Really?
will it end there? Because again, some of the speculation is that then communities who were previously on the defined benefits plan, we're talking about municipalities and cities and boroughs and things like that, they too could join in. And now we're talking about maybe 40,000 people. I mean, the boroughs. I know.
Don't say that, Mike.
I know.
What are you talking about?
I'm not supposed to.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm not supposed
Nothing to see here. These are not the drones you're looking for. Move along.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Mike Shower's our guest. We continue here in just a minute. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free thinking radio.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
All right, Mike Shower is our guest. James just said something in the chat room, too, that makes total sense. He says, because someone, whoa, the whole thing got slow. Because someone owns their defined contribution assets, they can bequeath it to their heirs when they pass away for multi-generational wealth. I mean, that's another point. I mean, the defined benefits, I think you do the like spousal, like death, upon the death of the recipient, the spouse does get some benefits for a period of time, but if that's it, then it doesn't go any further than that. If you have the benefits, you can pass those down like an asset to anybody. I mean, again, why would it, other than the fact that it's pie in the sky and it's locked in and the unions are definitely all about it. I mean, just go back and look at the testimony. Hours of testimony, all from union officials about how great this is going to be. It's crazy.
About their power base, Mike. It's about the money they want. Of course, they are supporting this.
Susan in the chat room has made several comments, and I'm trying to. Some of them I don't understand, but one of them she says, it's the policies causing the losses in the workforce. People want good doctors and educated children, not the citizens. I don't know exactly what you're saying there, but it's not just it's not policies that are causing the loss. This loss in workforce is nationwide. This is systemic. It's not a specific policy in a specific state that's causing the problem, because you can look at other states that have different plans and they're having some of the same issues. This is a deeper issue. She also said, I get tired of hearing about what is normal. There's nothing normal about this. The problem is that you've got to look at track records. You've got to look at, when you say you're tired of hearing about what is normal, and I'm not sure exactly what you were referencing there, but look, we have to look at the track record. Because past performance is indicative of future results. We know what happened with the defined benefits program in Alaska in the past. We know what happened with the defined benefits program at GM, at Delta, at many states and municipalities that have had it, and the unfunded liabilities that they're now saddled with. We understand that. Then she goes on to say, is this out of concern of his own constituents or his own benefit? Now, that's kind of, we know better. Mike Shower is doing this for his own constituents. His retirement's taken care of. He doesn't care about that. This is about the state and the constituency. And somebody,
what benefit would I get from this?
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And Terry got up and defended you on it, and she said, thank you for the clarification. So I don't know exactly what Susan, what dog she has in this fight if she's part of the state employee base asking these questions, but wouldn't you rather have control over your own retirement and destiny rather than leaving it up to the state with the track record they have right now? I mean, wouldn't you? I mean, I would much rather have it in my hands.
When I see people asking these questions, I mean, the union control and influence in this state runs deep, right? So you've got union attack dogs all over the place, on the radio, on social media, in the legislature. I'm not surprised because they have so much power and influence and so much money to spend from their members, they can afford to do this. Believe me, lots of union people taking those airplane flights and rental cars and staying in hotels in Juneau over the last, X amount of time, stumping for this. So they got tons of money to spend, my friend. If you think for 1 second you're going to not see people on the attack directed, when I have heard rumors of armed board members being asked, hey, you talking to shower? What do you say? Really? Interesting. Huh? Isn't it? Isn't that like influence? Like negative influence on public officials? If all of a sudden somebody is asking somebody on a board, let's say, for example, that why are they talking to that guy? Because what does that imply? That implies you better shut up. You better not talk to them. Mike, we're starting to get into grounds where we're back to that kind of political influence peddling again when people are doing that kind of stuff, because what does that do? That's a cooling off, right? Oh, well, I better not talk to him. I better not say, oh, that's, think of these kinds of things, Mike. That's where we're back to. I've said it before back in the 2019 phase. I was being threatened by people that were sending notes that we're going to come to your house to teach you a lesson. You better back off. You better shut up. I mean, that's the kind of garbage we're seeing, Mike. These people are desperate for this money and power. So when you hear people, that are making comments and stuff, on your, why don't you ask them the question and say, well, who do you work for? What's your benefit? Are you a state employee? Were you a state employee? Do you have a defined benefit plan? Because these are valid questions that people, of course, if they are, they won't answer, most likely, right? There are some that are honest and will tell you, but many of them won't say anything because they don't want to come out that, well, they do actually have a personal interest. What possible personal interest can I have in this, Mike? I tried to turn down my retirement from the state. I don't want it, right? I have my retirement from the military and, whatever I get from my current private sector employer. And then that's what I've got. That's it. Right. So I don't want what the state has. It's not where my eggs are in that basket, if you will. Right. So it's like, what? I'm already losing money in this job.
And Susan, no, he's not threatening you. He's answering your question. Your question was, is this for him or is this for the constituency? He has no dog in that fight, so to speak, other than the outcome of the state. He's not threatening you. That was not a threat. He was talking about him being threatened. So I don't know. Some people they're hearing what they want to hear, and I just wanted to know what Susan was trying to say. That's all I wanted to know. But no, he's not. No.
Whatever.
Public enema number one. Oh wait, sorry. Public enemy number one, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke show.
What? No, I'm an angel, an absolute angel. Nobody hates me. Everybody loves me. Come on. That's right. I mean, right? Everybody hold their hands up if they love me. Okay. State Senator Mike Shower is our guest. We're down to the last segment here, Mike. I don't know if we've beaten this defined benefits question to death or not. We still got to talk. We could still talk about education. We could talk about what else you're working on here as you go through the session. Again, kind of being the guy, I picture you, that kid with your nose on the glass looking in at the toy store during Christmas, is how I kind of picture you. But what else do we need to talk about here in this final segment? What's the deal?
Well, I mean, I'll make one last point, Mike. I don't know whoever's making these comments that thinks, people are being threatened. I've been threatened by what I would call union thugs. And I, frankly, Mike, my issues with the union, I think unions, I should say, continue to grow because I watch their influence and how they act. And when things like this happen, what do they do, man? They go on the attack.
Right. I mean, now, this is speaking as a union member, right? I just wanted you're a member of a private union, right? So
I am in a private sector union, Mike, and I will tell you when you say, well, unions, they're just there for the people. No, they're not. I'm sorry. there are some decent people working in unions. There are also some really questionable people that I've dealt with. I've had one of the big union leaders down in Anchorage when I went down there. Several of them were there actually from the big unions. You recognize names. Physically poke me in the chest, like with threats, right? Like if you don't, like I'm like, getting into the plan, I'm like, you better stop touching me, Bubba. Like that kind of stuff, Mike. I mean, this is the way they act and talk. And so when people say, well, unions are neutral, no, they're not. When my own union, which has a lot more generally conservative members in it, an airline pilot union, I have military guys, will not give me an endorsement. Because why? I had an R in front of my name. If I had a D in front of my name, they'd endorse me all day long. You're going to tell me unions are not leaning in one direction?
Political
Unions
entities? You're telling me that they're not political? They are.
Yes, Mike, they lean for sure. I could not get an endorsement. I didn't ask for money, nothing. All I asked for was, could I get an endorsement? The answer was a resounding no from the leaders of the union because I had an R in front of my name. Don't tell me for a second how unions lean and where their interests are. They overwhelmingly support people on the left, Democrats, far left, liberals, progressives, etc. That's where their policies are. That's where the people that trickle to the top of unions go. I've seen it with my own eyes. I've dealt with it. So don't try to tell me where unions stand. I know all too well. And I deal with them down there all the time and see where they are. Always about money and power, Mike. Always. Any entity you're talking about. So just stop. I'm not going to listen to the diatribe. I'm just done with that. And unions, are becoming, having these issues with unions. That's their own fault. It's because of how they act, what they say and do. And that's my own interactions with them. On to the other part for BSA. Like I said, that was, we started the program. Of course, we spent it almost all on the defined benefits, but there's a better path. I think we should take it. Enough said there. The amount of money, Mike, right now we're talking about for BSA increases, and this is interesting, could dwarf what we're discussing for defined benefit plans on a yearly basis right now. I think one different estimate is somewhere between, I think they're looking at like a 681. They're bouncing around the House. And then, of course, Senate's going to come back. And I think numbers thrown there like 1,400 something, roughly. Mike, that's the better part of $500 million. Right, the one that the one Democrat senator put in was about 257 million, so $250 million. Now you're talking upwards of $500 million. I mean, Mike, these are numbers that, again, I go back to. These people have been standing for. We can't afford the PFD, even though it helps the poor, even though it helps the middle class as a large percentage, even though it goes to the private sector to help out the private sector in the state. We can't afford that. It's too much. It's going to cost taxes. But let me tell you, boy, we're talking about what's going to be billion plus of spending over the next 5 years or so, or more, depending on what numbers they actually end up with, of sunk costs that we're stuck with forever. And they don't bat an eye. They don't blink. Nobody's saying a single thing about this is important for those, 20,000 state workers. So what 360,000, private sector workers? Who? What? Where'd who go? Back to Top Gun, right?
Right.
And he looks back and he's, where'd the mid go? Where'd who go? So, Mike, I am just, I'm almost speechless again. Clearly I'm not. That's a joke. I'm almost speechless that they're not even batting an eye about spending this kind of money. But boy, every time we even mention the PFD or talk about we can't afford that, I keep going back to that because that's the point that's stuck in my head about watching them say how unaffordable it is for the state, a cost that is not sunk, a cost that is not a liability to the future, a cost that's just a yearly check from the state that goes up and down based on performance of the fund and what's available. And we can't afford that. That's dangerous. That's going to hurt the state. That's going to run the ship into the ground. But the spending they're talking about is worse than that long term, something we're stuck with forever. And they're just moving full steam ahead. Mike, we're on the Titanic. We're the band is playing. Here comes the full speed ahead, man. Don't even bother changing the direction of the ship. It's amazing to me to watch these same people that stand up on the floor and mark my words. Here in the next 2 months from now, 2.5 months, we're going to be up there putting in a full PFD, right? Full statutory PFD. Watch the same people that talked yesterday on the Senate floor are going to be up there telling you how we can't afford this. This is too much for the state. This is going to cause taxes. Mark my words. They're going to be saying the same but exact opposite things about something that is not a long-term expense for the state that can be changed and is very helpful for the private sector and our citizens, not just a small chunk of them. Mark my words, brother. they're going to be saying the exact same stuff in reverse.
Yeah, well, remember, it'll be free rides die hard, and you Alaskans, you really need to start paying your fair share. You really need to start paying your own way now. You've had a free ride for too long, and now we need to. I mean, I can see this is going to be the discussion in 24, 36 months. I mean, I know that's what's going to be coming. I know that's what's coming.
Like I told you, the PFD it's going to go the way of the dinosaurs. The people in charge and the power, the union influence, and the influence they wield over people getting elected and reelected. The PFD is on its way to extinction. I wish I knew how to stop it. I wish we had the votes and people to enact something that actually does make common sense and is fiscally conservative, like a fiscal plan that's comprehensive, that caps spending, that wouldn't allow this to happen right now. Those people that have been fighting us on a spending cap and other things, wouldn't it be something, Mike, if we had a comprehensive fiscal policy? We wouldn't be able to do what we're doing right now because we would be bouncing over the cap. Wouldn't have a choice. The PFD would be locked away. We'd have a spending cap that would keep this in check moving forward, that stuck us around CPI, so we couldn't overspend like this and put this, on the future generations, our kids and grandkids. But unfortunately, we can't seem to enact a comprehensive fiscal policy. So I'm going to go back to that point. You're going to watch the people that are speaking so eloquently and lovely about a defined benefit plan that's going to shackle us for forever, but watch them reverse that speech when it comes to the PFD here in a couple months on the Senate floor. Mark my words. We can't seem to enact a comprehensive fiscal policy that we desperately need to make this, to balance the equation, if you will, and make it work. So I wish I had.
The Senate president said they had a fiscal plan. He said their fiscal plan was a 25-75 plan. That's their long-term. He said that in the press conference. That's their fiscal plan.
Well, I didn't see that. So, I mean, okay. Whatever,
that was last year. That was last year. That was because they were like, well, where's the Well, that is our fiscal plan. Okay. Well, what happens when you could
talking about
what happens
money?
What happens when you consume it all? What happens then?
Well, that's the point, Mike. If that's what they're trying to say about the PFD, oh, it's too much money, it's going to cost taxes. No, what you're spending now is locking us in forever, and it's going to cost taxes anyways to a private sector that is anemic and is not going to be able to afford it.
This comes down to the question of, do we have a revenue problem or do we have a spending problem? I've been saying this for 25 years. We have a spending problem. We've never really had a revenue problem. They keep saying it's a revenue problem, but it was a spending problem. Now with all the spending, they have created the revenue problem. So now they've made it, they brought it into being, and now we have both a revenue and a spending problem. Less than about 90 seconds here, Mike. Give us your final thoughts.
Well, the final thoughts, Mike, we've said it before. It's so amazing that we say the same things on this show and other places all the time because we're not learning from the past. We continue to do this. We don't have the tax base and the private sector strength in this state to do what we're doing long term. We're not Texas with 35 million people, or Florida that's booming with 28 million people, or California even with 40 million. We're with a massive economy where you've got taxes or you can at least draw upon, right? We don't have that here. We have an anemic private sector that depends on resource development, that is struggling in a hostile federal government to resource development, which is just going to strangle us long term. And we're watching people leave the state. And so why are we doing this?
Right.
We don't have the ability to do this long term. It's not a viable plan, Mike.
Yeah, well,
so we've got to do better than this.
I would agree. We've got to do better than this. But unfortunately, this is where we're stuck. Mike Shower, thank you, my friend. As always, it's good to hear from you. You can hold the line for a second. I'll give you a final bite. We are out of time. Tomorrow, folks, is Firearms Friday. We will see you then. Willie Waffle and Gun Talk. It's all tomorrow. The Michael Duke Show. Okay, Mike, I'll give you the real final bite at the apple here, and give you a chance to sound off on this. I mean, again, James, you're not wrong. James says the defined benefit plans is a fiscal black hole. And you're right, because you have no idea what it's going to cost you in the long run, and that's the problem. With a defined contribution, and yes, I agree. If we need to up the defined contribution rate to make it more attractive, to make it the best in the country, if we funded it to what they're suggesting we fund some of this other stuff to, okay, that makes sense. But again, it's portable. It gives them the opportunity to do what they need to do. And most importantly, it's predictable. We know what it's going to cost. We don't have to worry about actuarials being right or wrong. We don't have to worry about mistakes. We don't have to worry about cultural or financial or some kind of technological shift that makes things cost more. That's how we got killed in the first one was the defined benefits with the medical stuff, and the medical stuff outpaced everything the actuarials were saying. I mean, you cannot have that kind of uncertainty. I'm sorry. I will let you go. Go ahead. Your take here.
I think you ate most of the apple there for the end of this. I'm just saying. So that's a pretty good diatribe. I don't. What can I add to that?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's frustrating to watch this happen. It's frustrating to watch the fact that they are going to just willy-nilly vote for a bill without understanding what it's going to cost, assuming, I mean, the comment from in the paper that was quoted, Jesse Bjorkman said something along the lines of, what did he say? He said he believes that it's going to be cost neutral. Well, I can believe that pigs can fly. That doesn't mean that it's actually going to work. I mean, without an actual number and statistics and, and what happens when you get the dueling plant with the dueling reports? The actuarial says 1.2 billion and the Reason Foundation says 9 billion. Okay, so which one's right? They're both super expensive, but what happens if it's just somewhere in the middle? What if it's only 4.5 billion? I mean, what? How is that even sustainable?
How can you believe it's cost neutral when the one you're looking at right there says it's the better part of $100 million a year minimum, and people are acknowledging that it likely and probably will cost a lot more than that? How can you possibly say that is cost neutral? How can you say that when you look back in history and you look into history, it goes, it's not cost neutral. We're still paying for it. We're still underfunded. And we're still liable for this, for the overly generous one we couldn't afford. You want to go back to this? How can you possibly say it's cost neutral? The data shows it's not cost neutral. And wait until you get to the compound interest at the end. And what's the market doing by then? And how come your assumption is 7.25% when nobody else is doing that? How can you possibly say it's cost neutral? Because the reality is it's not. It's not, Mike. This is a lesson that everybody is learning, but Alaska, who seems to always want to buck the trends. Oh, binding caucus? Well, nobody else does that. Well, we do it up here, Oh, we're going to follow the market trends? Nope. Everybody else, well, we're not going to do that up here. Everybody's getting ready to defined benefit plans because the liability down the road, et cetera, all the things we mentioned for the last hour. Oh, but Alaska, we're going to do that up here. We just set our own trends, Mike, and unfortunately they're not good ones.
Right.
So,
well, and just
I don't even know what else to say
just so nobody accuses me of putting words in his mouth, here's what it says. Senator Jesse Bjorkman of North Kenai, who serves as the union rep for his school district, spoke at length about the benefits of defined benefits of the benefit program, and said it was, quote, likely cost neutral, unquote, and that the matter had been, quote, vetted over a decade ago, unquote. So first of all, likely cost neutral means that it's not a non-zero chance that it's going to be cost neutral. And secondly, that it's vetted over a decade ago. What do you mean vetted? What do you mean? Like the science is settled? This is it? Folks, if you want to look at the track record of defined benefits across the country, you could see that it is a losing proposition. There are very few defined benefit programs left in the country because they are unsustainable, because they are not predictable. And this is part of the problem. Likely cost neutral. Okay. Likely.
But listen to the words, Mike. Likely. That's everybody that when you listen to it, you can be very careful with the words you use. You can't be pinned down that. If it turns out the bankruptcy is 10 years from now, then somebody can say, well, I never said it was. I said I thought it might be, or it was likely. It's not that it will or it won't. It's not, they're not using hard language, if you will. They're using soft language, and the soft language gives you that wiggle room, right? Somebody asks me, you're going to join the binding caucus? Well, I got to wait and see what it looks like. And that's a soft answer,
right?
Because you can pedal that answer. You can spin it either way you want. And unfortunately I go back to all the things you said there are back to union influence, Mike. This is about union influence, and it is not hard language. And that hard language says, you know what? History says this is going to cost us.
Yeah.
History shows, as does the system, it's going to be burdened our children and our grandchildren. History shows us it was overly generous before, compound interest, higher rates than what everybody else in the market out there is using. That's going to come back to be a problem. That's hard language that you're putting out facts and figures and historical data. Soft language is looking for going, I don't think it's probably going to be cost neutral. It's probably going to be fine.
Probably,
well,
maybe.
That's soft language that doesn't really deal with planting the flag.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly. So, all right. Well, Mike, I appreciate it, my friend. Thanks for coming on board. I got to go. Folks,
I know. Talk to you next week.
All right. We'll see you later. Be kind, love one another, live well. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.